I have my coffee and I am ready to talk about something I've been thinking about, and that is the show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you grew up in this era as a child, I wanted to talk about takeaways that I got from the show that continue to resonate in my life nearly 40 years later. What's really weird about just, in my wild mind, I didn't really notice these aspects in my childhood while watching, but wanted to reconnect nostalgically. Maybe if you have your own thoughts and opinions on what you took away from the show, leave them down in the comments and we can continue this conversation further. If you are new to the channel, my name is Elaine and I post every Sunday, just on random things. As somebody that is a little bit older, has a little bit of experience on their back, just wanted to make sure that I am sharing what I come across, and hopefully you stick around. Let's get into it. When I look back at my childhood, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was not a show that would be considered anywhere near my favorite shows of all time. And I would say probably for good reason. There was other things that were a little bit more engaging, such as Muppet Babies, He-Man and She-Ra, Gem, truly outrageous. Honestly, when I think about some of those shows, I don't really remember much of anything, or a specific episode. But one thing that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood did was, it just, now it's kind of resonating to me, is how almost monotonous the show was. I never was really super into the puppets. I thought they were kind of sometimes a little bit creepy and scary. But then again, knowing me, I'm just a little bit, I feel more on the cutesy side. I like cutesy things. The image of Mr. Rogers is very, very plain, but you would always get the most consistent show from beginning to end. He would start off entering into the set, take off his jacket and replace it with his knit cardigan, which I'm going to sport, and put on his home shoes or home slippers. Maybe when I was a kid, I just thought it was like whatever. But the one reminder that resonates with me now is routines and consistency is almost a blessing. It's often the routine that I've built for myself that keeps me basically grounded. There are certain habits that I do daily, weekly, or I try to do weekly, that kind of just keep me focused on things that matter. For example, I like to have coffee whenever I'm working from home or during the weekend. I wake up and brush my teeth, obviously daily, because that's very important piece to feel like my mouth is very fresh. Sometimes when I'm not on that routine, it makes me feel like I'm not steady. So yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways from the show, and it's something that I'm always reminded of. I always felt that Mr. Rogers was always very present with the characters that he was interacting with. Obviously the set was very, very small. You could say it's considered low budget. The characters were so in your face, and the scripting was very, just really present. And that's something that I think that we kind of hope for when we're growing up. We've all experienced scenarios where we interact with people and they're not really necessarily engaged. They might be distracted with their phone, guilty as charged. just not there. And those levels of disconnect kind of just take away from feeling like you need to understand somebody a little bit more or take care. I don't know, that's something that I really appreciate and think about when I reflect on the show. And moving into this whole idea of connection and being present, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I can never say it. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Really, try to say it 5 times fast. It's really difficult. Maybe you can type it fast in the comments down below. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood reminds me that the ability to ask questions to help you understand something or learn something new is something that we need to continue to do. Okay, now that I'm older and I feel a little bit more aware of who I am as a person, we get in kind of caught up in that. Like, no one can change my mind about certain things. And you know what? You build up your values and your system, but Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood reminds us to continue to try to listen and gain a mutual understanding of where somebody's coming from. And I think that's what the show really did for kids. It gave them the permission to feel. And that's not something that you learn when you're watching the show. You kind of watched it and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, well, when I look back, I just find that the show was intentionally endearing. With the prevalence of technology, I'm able to watch episode archives, and I feel really grateful for the opportunity to actually have been a viewer of the show. I don't have kids, and obviously I've come to the realization that's probably not going to be something that is in the cards. And I'm hoping that the shows that are on the television continue to provide messaging that helps kids maybe not think about it now, but it's entertaining enough so when you grow older and think about it, it actually resonates more. When we look back at some of the programming, I really hope that it lends itself to building better character, and I think that's what Mr. Rogers did for me. I'm recognizing that there is also an entire audience that has never seen an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Check out some of the archives. I'll link some down below. But there's also a documentary that came out in 2018? Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it just kind of breaks down Fred Rogers' life, his actual life, and his commitment to the programming. I am currently on some weird nostalgic kick since I started this YouTube journey, and I don't know if it's considered a midlife crisis or something. I'm actually okay with it. I think that sometimes it's important to learn from our past to continue to shape our future, also provide really good reminders of how we need to continue to shape our lives for future generations. Would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and maybe you are kind of on this journey with me where I don't know, it's just searching our nostalgic past. Is there any other shows that are like this for you? I honestly don't remember any episode of Gem or He-Man. I just remember the characters, but just not the overall messaging. So yeah, that's about it. And I hope we'll talk more about some other things that are on my mind down the road. Thanks.